So if you followed steps 1 through 4 in prototyping and you're feeling a little stuck or a little confused, the creative juices aren't flowing that well, there's a great framework that I want to introduce to you that's straight from the Stanford D School, as I mentioned, where you can get really creative and really effective with brainstorming. So let's walk through it. A good brainstorm. There are 4 main components to a good brainstorm, and this is, again, taken straight from the Stanford D School. They definitely know their stuff. The first one, we're going to frame a good question. We're going to warm up. We're going to actually brainstorm. And then we're going to have awards ceremony and summary. Step number 1, frame a good question. A good question is something along the lines of, how many ways can we think of to fill in the blank? We want the question to be open-ended. Something like, how many ways can we think of to experience making an impact on women's empowerment? We don't want the question to be too broad. So for example, how many ways can we think of to make Bob happy? That's a really broad question. You know, happy is subjective and it means a lot of different things to different people. We also don't want to include the solution in the question. For example, let's think of 10 new ways to make a ladder for the stockroom, because the ladder is the solution. So a better question would be, how many ways can we think of to give a person access to inventory in high places? That question doesn't assume that ladders are the only way to solve the problem, and they open up the solution space for more creative answers. Like, for example, user-controlled stockroom drones. That could be a thing. Step number 2 to a good brainstorm, warming up. So brainstorms will be more creative and get you to where you want to be if you give yourself a transition from, the hectic event-driven work day to a state of relaxed, creative attention. We talked about this in previous weeks, but ask yourself, how many different ways can the chicken cross the road? Or Stanford D School recommends get a can of Play-Doh. Some call it magic material you can play with during brainstorming. In a past life, we used to have a Legos conference room, so you could get in the brainstorming mindset by playing with Legos. Step number 3. Now you're ready to brainstorm. So get some Post-it notes and a pad of paper. It's great to use the Post-its and write one idea on each Post-it and put it up on the wall or on top of the table or something. And there are 3 general rules of thumb when brainstorming. So 1, you want to go for quantity, not quality. Secondly, and I know this one's hard, defer judgment. Don't censor ideas based on feasibility or resources or something like that. I want to encourage you, have those wild ideas. The more out there, the better. Once you've brainstormed on your Post-it notes, step number 4, look at all your ideas in the Post-its. Can you group them based on different buckets, ones that are similar, etc.? And now it's the really fun part. So you can pick out an idea per awards category listed here. So you can see 5 categories in front of you for an award. So 1 is most exciting. Secondly, one we wish we could do if money were no object. Thirdly, the dark horse. Probably wouldn't work out, but if it did. Fourthly, most likely to lead a great life. And lastly, if we could ignore the laws of physics. So take a few moments, figure out which ideas get which awards. And step number 5, the last one, is summary. So now we're going to put it all together. So for example, we had 85 new ideas. We grouped them into 6 categories. Based on our focal question, we selected 8 killer ideas to prototype. Then we prioritize that list, and our first prototype is blank. So what's your first prototype? So circling back for step number 6. So remember, we had 4 steps. Step number 2, we picked the question that we want to prototype to solve for. Steps 3 and 4 were around brainstorming prototype conversations or coffee chats that we could have with folks, and prototyping or prototype experiences. So actual action and things that we could do to test out what our question is. And if you're getting a little stuck, recommended walking through the brainstorm criteria on how to have a good brainstorm. And the whole goal of all of this is to come up and answer the question of, well, what's your first prototype? What do you want to try first? And I want you to take a moment and give yourself a pat on the back. There's amazing work in doing this, and hopefully a little bit of fun too.